Hey, comrades, welcome to chapter 39, I think. Of Nikke Got Us a Victory, the greatest game that has come out in the last 10 years. So, what's going on here? So we pick up immediately with Ziz and Leviathan. They have been swallowed by Mother Whale, and they're sitting around in the darkness, and they're chit-chatting about stuff. And they're like, well, it's a good thing we got away, but now the fuck we do? I don't know. What's wrong with this Mother Whale? I don't know. It seems weird. I don't know what's going on. And then they start talking about, Ziz is like, oh yeah, Levy, I totally forgot I had this thing. And she pulls out this corpse. And she's like, look, it's got 2 cores. And it's like, ruh-roh. Clearly, we know that is Rappy's body from like all the way back in like chapter 6 or something, right? So Ziz found it, so now they have the core they need. And then she mentions wanting to feed it to Behemoth to try to speed up her recovery, but Levy thinks that that's a better use for that, like they can get access to their thing they've been trying to do, right? The secret thing they've been trying to do. And while they're in conversation about this, they see this like very strange looking rapture approach, and they're like, oh, it's a rapture. And if you remember with these heretics, with the 4 beasts, they are not aligned with the offspring, so them and other raptures are not always on friendly terms and whatnot. So they get kind of quiet, and then up stumbles this cobbled together like looking rapture that just looks bizarre and is walking weird, and it's dun-dun-dun, it's Reptilian! And he's like, hello! And they start chit-chatting about what he's doing. He's like, oh, I had the Mother Whale pick you up because you look like you were in danger, and you look like you were having a struggle, and I wanted to protect you and make sure you're doing okay. And then he mentioned something about being Nikke's, and then Ziz is like, no, we're actually heretics, and it gets quiet, and everyone's like very awkwardly standing there for a minute, and then Reptilian's like, really? That is amazing! I love it! I would love to have communication with you and conversation, because conversation is how we grow. And Levy and Ziz are both like, yeah, okay, sure. And he's like, come, let me show you what we've done here. It is amazing. This beautiful world I've crafted full of raptures and human, and now we can have the heretics and we can all be friends. But before the test, Reptilian wants to, not before the test, before the tour, Reptilian wants to test out Ziz and Levy. So he talks a lot about, he like pulls out an apple and is like, what do you think about this? And they're like, it's food. It's like, would you like to eat it? And they're like, sure, why not? And then he talks more about all his like crazy background that we recovered in last week, about how he befriended raptures and they became good friends and did stuff, and how he taught the Mother Whale how to do things, and how he's made her a vegetarian. And that all, I think he talks about that right now. He talks about, that happens in this chapter at some point, but how all the raptures in the Mother Whale that are living here peacefully together are all vegetarians. They eat like of the land that he's growing on top of the Mother Whale, and how it's not like other Mother Whales. And he's tried to befriend other Mother Whales, but they haven't wanted to have anything a part of that. And this Mother Whale is called Whaley. So Whaley and him have their fine menagerie of people. And then he talks to them about like, so do you feel like killing me right now? And they're like, well, not really. And it's like, do you feel like killing Nikke's on sight? And they're like, not particularly. And he's like, ooh, excellent. You have passed the test. We can definitely be friends, and we can all be, you know, I'll take you on this tour and show you this wonderful world that I've constructed here, and then we can have communication, and then we can be friends, and we can learn from one another and grow and be happy together. We then hop over to the commander, and he is strapped into a rocket on the Admiral along with Maxwell and Rappy, and they talk about, like, the commander constantly is like, I don't know if this is a good idea, guys. Maybe there's another way to do this. And they're like, nope, not doing it. Let's go. And then we do a little flashback to, like, I don't know, an hour ago, when it's like, shit, I can't get a hold of Reptilian to figure out what's going on, or have him slow down or come pick us up so we can figure out what to do with Levy and Ziz and everything else that we want to do. And so then Mattis, specifically Maxwell's like, oh, we have these rockets on the Admiral that we don't know, we have nothing else to do with them because they're used to, like, attack Tyrant class raptures, but we can, like, retrofit it to be like a rocket. And then us as the commander is like, isn't that gonna fuck me up because I'm human and like the G-force and all that stuff? And they're like, nah, you'll be fine. And so we're like, well, we don't want to do it. And then Maxwell and Rappy are like, well, too bad, we're doing it. And so they strap us in, and then we get in, we go boom, and we're up there, and Maxwell and Rappy are fucking having like a tea party, talking about like that it's really nice that Laplace and Drake had to take a separate rocket because of like weight restrictions or something. And so they can just calmly chat about what's going on. Meanwhile, we feel like our insides are going to explode or rupture or whatever. We're just like freaking out, barely holding on, and just like, and they're just like, yada yada, chit chat. And they talking about how like just the raptures, Reptilian, and how nice everything is, not having Laplace and Drake around to cause so many problems. Eventually, Maxwell uses the rocket thrusters on the rocket to slow us down so that we make like a soft crash land onto Whaley. As we pile out, we notice that there's atmosphere, there's not like wind blowing us off Whaley, there's really no problems at all, and that there's like gardens nearby and all this stuff. Shortly thereafter, Laplace and Drake's rocket like crashes into the back of Whaley, and they are stuck inside. But they're not stuck inside because they can't get out. They're stuck inside because they're insane. Because they're not the only way they would leave the rocket is if they can make a dramatic escape. And the window for Laplace is too small, so she can't crash out of it. And then there's not like a dramatic way for Drake to get out either. So they just sit there and demand Maxwell do something. And Maxwell's like, I'm done with this shit. Like, fuck this. And so then we look at everything, and Rappy talks about the garden and everything else that's going on and how this is like very typical reptilian. And then we're like, oops. And Maxwell's like, no, I've heard of reptilian. Everyone has, like us and Absolute and other like top tier Nikkes. I'm like, well, how do you know about that? It's like, well, he's super famous for like all the crazy shenanigans he did, but everyone thought he was dead. But clearly he's not dead, and we know he's not dead because he gave us the map that showed us the crystal zone a little bit earlier as well. Eventually, Laplace and Drake do get out of the rocket, and we walk around looking at the garden and talking about all that and thinking about all the stuff that's going on. And then it starts to rain, and we're like, "Rain? What the fuck? Does Whaley have his own like, or her own like nature business going on?" And it's like, "Oh no, it's the blowhole." So we all look up and we see the blowhole. This water's shooting out, and then we also notice this like funny-looking monk lady kind of floating there as well. And as we're looking at her, she notices us and she comes down. She immediately introduces herself not immediately. She introduces herself as Nayuta, and it's like, Nayuta, who does that? And she's like, oh, I've heard of you from my squad. And it's like, what squad are you from? And she's from Pioneer Squad, which is Rapunzel, Snow White, and Scarlet. And we're like, we never heard of you. They never mentioned you before. And she's like, oh, they've talked about you quite a bit. And we're like, I don't know. This seems kind of sketchy. We don't really believe you. Like, what's to tell us you're not like a heretic or whatever? Oh, I forgot to mention, Laplace and Drake cannot speak at this point because they screamed so much while they were stuck inside the rocket that they've gone mute. And Maxwell and Rappy both find this absolutely delightful. Okay, anyway, going back. So, talking to Nayuta, and then, so she proves to us that she is very familiar with Pioneer Squad, if nothing else, because she describes, like, all of Rapunzel's, like, erotic fixation about, like, the bug thing with, like, eating bug burgers and shit with Snow White, and then, Scarlet's, like, fascination with, like, gardening using, like, fecal matter and stuff. And we're like, oh shit, she really does know these guys. And she's like, yes, I'm so delighted to finally meet with you and everything. And then she notices that Drake and Laplace can't speak, and so she heals them with the same golden light that Rapunzel uses when she's healing and doing her stuff. Immediately upon getting their voices back, Laplace and Drake pepper Nayuta with a bunch of questions about this and that. Nayuta expertly like dodges out of answering anything until Laplace and Maxwell get kind of bored. And so then we start asking about her and what's going on and why is she here and all this kind of stuff. And she gives us a bunch of cryptic answers as well. Eventually, it comes through that Rappy wants her to inspect her core to kind of see what's going on with there, see if there's any trace of the Red Hood left. And when Nayuta investigates, she's like, no, this is a perfect merging of like Rappy and Red Hood's like cores to make like an even more powerful core. And the experience is no longer like, now she's sharing the body, she is Rappy in one, right? And this is, you know, she knows a lot about this. And we question how she knows a lot about this. And, you know, if you pay attention to some of the stuff that's going on in the past, she's obviously related to VTC, which she briefly talks about, and the technology related to the Pilgrims and her relationship to VTC and stuff. But she doesn't really go into a lot of detail. We just kind of get like hints about it, that she's like somehow related to that whole organization, everything that's going on with that. And then she starts to lead us to visit with Reptilian, who's currently with Ziz and Levy as well. And she also mentions, I forgot, Deep as well, which is related to something she refers to as the Profound, and Deep is related to VTC, which we know. And I don't know if we've really talked about Deep yet, actually, to be completely honest. So maybe I'm jumping ahead. But we do know Deep is related to Red Hood's story from previously, and that there was, you know, she mentions Deep. Deep is, of course, who kind of helped Rappy and Red Hood before, and they are related to VTC. So now it's like stuff starting to like really come together in this like greater mythology. We jump back to Ziz and Levy and Reptilian's showing them around more, talking about the unification and about conversation, and the more you can communicate, the more essentially you evolve. And he's feeding Ziz and offering food to Levy, but even though Levy's like very skeptical with the whole situation. But the conversation leading to evolution, right? It's very behemoth coded. And so she's starting to get like a little bit more on board on that. And then as like they are approaching like other raptures that are like blue instead of red, and you know, they're very docile and they're just like seem to be sunbathing and just relaxing and enjoying themselves after like working in the garden. Ziz is like, can I touch them? And Reptilian's like, of course, you can do whatever you want. And so she does, and she's like very giddy about the whole situation. And even though Livy's very skeptical still, Reptilian is loving all this, and he's thinking and dreaming out loud about expanding his garden even more and building a ranch and doing all this like crazy shit to increase the reptilian or the human and rapture and heretic alliances so they can all live together and be at peace. Back over to us, Nayuta has absolutely no idea where she's going. So we just wander around. She keeps talking about how she's trying to get to the elevator to get down into like the Whaley and explore some more and be able to find Reptilian and stuff. But we just keep running into dead ends, like a cliff leading off Whaley, like a big fan, all this kind of crazy nonsense. And then also she just kind of like is meandering about. Meanwhile, or she'll just like, I need a nap, or I just need to meditate for a little bit and I'll be able to figure it out. And we're just like this like simple task of like walking across Mother Whale. It starts to become like days of meandering about, it seems, and not finding our way and just being completely lost because Nayuta has no clue what she's doing. And the whole time Laplace and Drake are just complaining because there's no action, there's nothing to do, and they're just getting bored, not fighting raptures and not fighting heretics or anything like that. And Maxwell's like complaining to them. And then at some point Nayuta gets like kind of erotic in that she's like, oh, I'm doing such a bad job, you should punish me, Commander, you should spank my bottom and teach me a valuable lesson. And then Rappy and Maxwell seem like super game about this whole idea as well, and we're like, absolutely not. we're not playing this stupid bullshit game with you people. Finally, we stumble upon an elevator, but before we can activate it, we get attacked by a bunch of raptures. So we fight them off, and then at the end, we have like a gashing wound in our arm or whatever, then Rappy starts really freaking out about. But as we all stand there and look, it just like heals itself, and that's a credit to like our extraordinary like healing capabilities, which we started to like have, and that started to be kind of an issue. Rappy, our wife, essentially gets very concerned and demands that we go back to the Ark to get this shit figured out, because we should not be healing that fast, and something's got to be wrong. At this point, Nayuta has kind of like noticed that something's going on, and she starts inquiring about what's about us and like our past and everything. We talk about how we don't really know our past, how we kind of grew up in like an orphanage and went to like the military academy, but we have like these memories of being like in a hospital or something, or like a lab. And then it comes out that our designation from Ether, is subject number 7. And at that point, Nayuta kind of freaks out, and she mentions like the gene and the activation of the gene, and we're like, the fuck? And she's like, if the gene activates, the Gene Reaper will come. And we're like, the Gene Reaper? Like, the fuck? But before we can get into more of that whole situation, there is an explosion that distracts everybody. This explosion, it's more of like a pillar of light that erupts from the ground from the distance, and it's like this huge giant thing. And up to this point, Mathis, with their tactical upgrade or whatever they're gonna fucking call it when they release these guys, they have been like super impressive, way more stronger than before. But Nayuta's really not. She has commented on like how they're not that impressive, and they still have like something more to give and something more they need to do. But nonetheless, everyone is like, holy shit, this like beam of light is like way more powerful than like anything. And Drake and Laplace think it's like it's a super impressive show, and it's very all this stuff. But Nayuta gets like very concerned, and we're like, the fuck is that? And Nayuta's like, it's Eden Spear. We're like, Eden Spear? And it's like such a powerful attack that not even like a heretic or nothing has ever been seen like this thing before. It is like the most impressive thing that could possibly exist up in this, shooting into the sky. Right. Meanwhile, over with Ziz and Levy, they see the same thing, and they're like freaking the fuck out. And they're talking about how like we need to go drop Behemoth out so she's safe, and we need to go figure out what's going on with that, because it's not the Offspring. So do the Offspring have a new weapon? Are they searching for us? Like, what could this beam of light possibly be? Like, it's a danger, and we need to kind of figure out more about it, because knowledge is power, and that way we can make sure we have defenses against it. But before they're able to execute on that idea, Reptilian talks to them about how there's one more person he wants them to meet, and they're like, we met all these raptures, we're not like, it's fine, whatever. And he's like, no, this friend of mine is not a rapture and is also on Whaley. So at this juncture, we hop over to the other counters for the rest of this chapter. We start off with Neon. Neon is meeting up with Viper and Jackal out in the Outer Rim, and we learn that they now have these bombs strapped to them. Like, I mean, they had the bomb collars, but now they're like, they got bombs. Like, these bombs are gonna fucking kill them if they fuck around and find out anymore. But Neon has reached out to them to try to like find out more information about Anise when she was a pop idol, and also to try to track down this producer that was mentioned before, the Miss. So Viper makes some commentary about having seen Anise when she was coming up as an idol the first time around, which means Jackal or Viper, just like Anise and Rappy and everybody, it's like 100 years old or something. Anyway, so they chat about that for a little bit, and then they talk about how like the most likely place where this lady's going to be hanging out, Miss Smith, is in, if I can say this correctly, Ephialtes, something like that, which is like the super like elitist like den of debauchery. It's like the most red light of all red light districts, whatever, and it has like supreme security, and it's like where only the super decadent and rich of like the Ark go to like take care of their depravity and stuff. And it's a lot of like fucking Nikkes and stuff like that, and that apparently she's here gambling or something, and that this is where they need to track her down to find. At this juncture, we get to meet the Exotic's new leader, because Crow is locked up forever or dead or something. Anyway, it's EH. You remember EH, Ellison Harper? That's right. She has been turned into a Nikke, as we discussed, like, I don't know, 10 chapters ago or something. And she's got a hot new bod, and she is also strapped with a bomb, and her whole thing is about atonement. So she's leading Exotic so that she can get all that figured out. Neon talks to them about, like, the atonement that EH is making versus, like, Viper. And Viper mentions that she doesn't know how to like atone for like her actions against the Ark per se, but she doesn't care about that shit so much. What she really cares about is repairing her reputation with the counters, which is why she's so willing to help by Neon here. But also she's really concerned about Honey, which is us, and she wants to make sure that we can be friends again, and so we'll come like fuck her in the Outer Rim and stuff like that, obviously. But the way she's going to do that is by helping Neon and helping like establish peace in the Outer Rim and doing all that good stuff. And then Neon starts to get worried that like, well, you know, you guys are focused on like peacekeeping and building alliances and developing like the Outer Rim. Wouldn't that give you like more access to be able to create like a rebellion or do stuff like that? And then EH is like, oh, you don't have to worry about that. And Neon's like, well, I don't know, the bombs didn't really stop you guys before. And she's like, no, come with me, I'll show you. So while we're headed over to Ephialtes, EH points out that these two new Nikkes, and these are the Nikkes that what's her name, Enoch, got authorized to develop. They are endless and eternity, and they're fucking hot because they're like as a true man of culture, their body type is exquisite. Let me put it like that. Anyway, so they have been assigned to permanently watch over the Outer Rim and to destroy like any like whiff of terrorism activity or anything that's going to damage the Ark whatsoever. And they maintain like a 24-hour surveillance, right? So they are Nikkes, but they're not powered with like a human brain like other Nikkes. They're powered with an AI brain that is in complete control of Enoch, so they don't ever have to sleep or do anything. So they're kind of bullshit Nikkes do to maintain their so that they don't mind switch or whatever. And then we get to see that someone is like picking up a weapon or doing something, and they instantly like disintegrate the target into ash using these like super high energy heat weapons. And there's like, they don't really give a fuck about like regular crimes, because they're servants of Enoch, so the only thing they care about is terrorist acts or things that could affect the Ark negatively, right? So any like muggings or murders or whatever, they just don't give a fuck about that. And then Viper reveals that these two entities, Endless and Eternity, have completely wiped out all of Heavenly Ascension that was left. Like, they're completely destroyed. Like, it took them like a week and they eliminated it completely. And then EH kind of comments about how while the Ark is safer than ever, the Outer Rim has officially become like an inescapable dumping ground for the undesirables of the Ark. So the Outer Rim has become far worse than it was before, and she feels a lot of bad feelings about that, you know, and a lot of guilt, because this is like, she's the one who caused that to happen. She was trying to like give light to the Outer Rim, but instead she made it like 100 times worse. And that these Watchers have absolute power and ability to kind of like shut all this stuff down. And finally, they get to Ephialtes or whatever, and EH uses an electronic jammer to block like the Watcher's surveillance, and privately questions Neon about the rumored third surface reclamation war. And Neon's like, I don't know about that or whatever. I know what you're talking about, stuff, blah, blah, blah. And like EH is like, no, I've heard about like you guys having like land on the surface and doing all this stuff and whatnot. And then EH reveals that she's discovered through like an old central government contact or whatever, some old informants, that there's a facility that is like overclocking military production by like 10 times, right? And they're utilizing like unprecedented high advanced technology, and everyone's like pumping out like you got like tactical upgrade for Ellison and whatever fucking upgrade that Missilis is using and stuff. And then this is like huge arsenal of stuff that's being going on. And then there's reclamation site number 1, and then there's the tech trades that are going with Eden and stuff. And it's like, holy shit, how do you know about all this stuff? And that she mentions that it seems inevitable that there's going to be a war going on. And Neon honestly is like, I don't know about any of that shit. But and if Neon doesn't know, then the suspicion is that we don't know, the commander, right? So she asks Neon to make sure the commander knows that all this shit's going on, so that we can be up with whatever's going on. We then head inside Ephialtes, which is run by an organization called the Line, and obviously it ties with the central government, and they prepare to rendezvous and track down the target, Miss. At this point, we'll leave Neon for the rest of the chapter and head over to Anise. Anise is doing idle bullshit. So she's pretty exhausted from practicing, and, you know, she's trying to shake off years of, like, rust, like hundreds of years, or 100 years. So she's taking a breather in, like, a state-of-the-art practice room, and she's chatting with Noise, the member of Prima Donna, if you remember. I think Arya's the squad leader, but anyway, so Noise and her start talking about stuff, and they start talking about like Volume and how Noise and Volume are both eager to support Anise for her farewell concert because they used to be fans. She has gathered as oh no, not that they used to be fans. That there's a lot of fans out there. There's a lot of people who have heard of Anise because of or have remembered Anise because of all the stuff the Counters are doing and how she's famous for that. So like seeing her successful would be pretty great. And then Noise and Volume start arguing over who's like support that Anise is going to use, like, you know, the stylists, the composers, all this stuff, and who's better. And Noise and Volume keep arguing about all that stuff, and then they demand Anise make a judgment. And then the excitement and like the argument and all the fun like girly stuff is killed like immediately when Mustang sends for an emergency message placing an immediate embargo on Prima Donna, banning them from supporting Anise at all. Like Mustang wants Anise to like earn this and work for it herself and find stuff and whatnot, and there will be no, as mentioned before, Tetra will not be involved at all in helping this out. So the fact that they're there, and to bypass this, Arya is letting Anise practice and work in Arcanian Hall, which is like this massive 5,000 seat venue, which she booked for a year straight. So like I guess like she can just like override Mustang and like this one thing or whatever. So the girls leave because they're not allowed to like help, like Prima Donna leaves Anise anymore. And so left alone practicing, Anise, who's frustrated and sore, struggles with like her physical limitations at this point and not being able to be like as much of like an idol as she was before. She then recalls Noise mentioning like the positivity on social media, all the people are fans for her and wanting her to be successful and all this stuff. And she decides against like better judgment to check out her phone and see what the social media is saying, which is always a bad decision, as Anise shortly finds out, because she starts searching for her name and for stuff on TT Star, on music forums. And while a majority, like the vast majority of stuff is positive about people like, oh yeah, I remember TT Star, they were so great, right? Because people live like forever because of Evergreen, I think is what it's called, and positive, she eventually starts finding like some toxic comments, and she's doing a lot of that like negative thinking patterns, like cognitive distortions, where she is ignoring the positive and focusing purely on the negative, on all the haters and stuff. So all these antis and haters, they relentlessly blame Anise for breaking up TD Star, which is kind of fair. And they label her as the worst member of the group. They twist her success in the Counters, saying that she probably got kicked out and that she's crawling back into showbiz because she's nothing else going on, and that she's ruining the lives of Prika and Mint and all this stuff. And she becomes like extremely, this is like a very dark part of the story when you're playing through it. And she becomes deeply consumed with like all the cyberbullying and the cyberbullying from before and all her trauma that we'll get to like in a later event. And then there's like comments about her that she should just go up to the surface and die and be dead or whatever. And so she becomes so overwhelmed with like the sense of anxiety and like has a panic attack and runs to the bathroom to like vomit. And then she like passes out on the floor. A bit later, she wakes up in the repair center next to Avastir, who's found her passed out, or the janitor found her passed out and contacted Avastir. Anise tries to get her phone back from Avastir, but Avastir's like, hell no, fuck that. And she, let's see, and they talk about her like destructive surfing for the internet to find like an ego boost or to rely on social media to feel better or do whatever. And then at some point, Nurse comes in and mentions Anise by name, and then she like freaks out and says that the nurse is a hater and that she can't trust anyone, and if Avastar like try to calm her down and stuff, and assures her the nurse is just like fucking nurse. And eventually Anise gets discharged because she just had like a panic attack, and she's super like shaken by the whole situation and being watched by the public. And then she gets like a hat, sunglasses, and a mask to like hide herself, and she receives a message from Mustang demanding that she come to like Pretty's old room. And you remember Pretty is like the idol that got killed, that Rappy was at like, oh, she didn't go to the concert, but you know, that's their friend. Let's see, their friend died on the surface, and so they weren't able to go, and then Pretty got killed from Rappy's story. When Anise meets over at Mustang at Tetra, she admits that she wants to cancel the concert because she cannot bring herself to forgive the art and all that stuff, and she doesn't want to perform for all the people that humiliated her and all this stuff. And so Mustang shows her the expansive armament, which is codenamed Star, which was crafted from the remains of Pretty, who is the former idol that kind of Anise was, you know, slated to kind of take over for. And then originally, Mustang promised Star to Anise when she fully committed to protecting the Ark, and he holds that weapon. He holds it like kind of ransom now, and says he will not give it to her. Like, this is what he's going to give her this weapon armament like as an upgrade, right? Just like Rappy's upgrade, but combining with Red Hood. But she has to do the concert, right? And then he kind of like reasserts that like she will not get that until she does the concert with Mint and Pregan. It has to be like a good concert, and it has to really be from her heart and not just be something she throws together last second. And Anise gets like super pissed off about this. She like vents about the Ark and how it's a rotten colony and all full of worthless people and all this stuff. And then she admits that she wants the power of the Star is to keep up with her teammates, that she has no desire to like help the Ark. All she wants to do is just keep up with Rappy and the commander and stuff. But Mustang refuses to back down because he's baller as shit, saying she doesn't understand her own character. And they go back and forth about this and whatnot, and that he says that she is doing this to protect the Ark, she just doesn't realize it or whatever, and so she gets super angry and storms out of there. Back at the outpost, Avastar offers to read like the filtered responses about just the positive social media posts to Anise. And then Anise gets kind of angry about like, why does this member of like Overseer, who's not even in her same corporation essentially, because she's Elysian, cares so much about this. And then Avastar tells like this really fucking sad story about how like there was a friend of hers who was like in love, like she was like at the worst state in her life. She was going to school and hated her life and all this stuff. And then she heard TT Star, she saw TT Star at like a barbecue joint or something. And it kind of changed her life around. She became a super fan. She became obsessed with making like AI videos and all this other stuff, like replicating TT Star and doing all this stuff. But then eventually there was like the real bad bullying campaign that occurred that kind of got Anise to be like, I'm done with this shit, right? And so Avastar, or not Avastar, well, it's obviously Avastar, but her friend decided that she was going to make a video that was going to be like a deep fake of Anise explaining like what happened, why she quit the band and all this stuff, and why someone got like hurt in this thing. But then Anise like released the actual video, which was an explanation, and they were like not the same explanation. And so people started calling Anise Two-Face, and that it's like this kind of like a liar, and this really like destroyed her career because it's like, you know, she couldn't recover from that. And so crushed by like the guilt, Avastar, or like the friend, committed suicide. And then like shortly thereafter, Anise like realizes that it was like Avastar who killed herself, and then Avastar admits that yes, you know, I killed myself and then I became a Nikke, or in my suicide letter I wanted to become a Nikke, but the whole point of becoming a Nikke was that I wanted to keep my own personality, and I wanted to continue to be obsessed with helping TT Star recover and become great again and all this stuff, so that she could devote her life to supporting her idol that gave her like a purpose and hope to live. Can I exist in this? And they go back and forth about this and about the darkness of the Ark and all this stuff. And then Avastar is like, look, you don't need to shine for the whole Ark. You just need to shine for those people who actually care about you and actually want you to be successful and to be happy and whatnot. You don't need to shine for the whole world. And that, you know, there's still people who care and want you to be a star. And then Anise gets like super mad at her, and she's overwhelmed by all this stuff. And she's like, you better give up because I've already given up and there's no way I'm going to shine for the Ark, and this is a waste of your time. And then she's like, please leave. And so Avastar leaves Anise alone, where she just sits around in the dark in the outpost at night with no one around. And that wraps up chapter 39. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye, Z's.